Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Discovering Dawson's Creek. My God, what the hell's going on here?
I
Oh
tried to
dear.
warn you. I tried to warn
Y-
you.
You know what? You tried and you succeeded in warning me because I went into these two episodes prepared for something, Janine, that delivered, admittedly.
Yeah.
The promise was delivered. The uh, disappointment, I suppose, but not in a way that it's a bad finale, but just
No.
disappointment from a character emotional standpoint. I'm upset about this
Yes.
finale. I'm upset about these two episodes that we're going to be talking about today. There's very, very depressing things going on.
Yeah, it's pretty downer
Um,
stuff.
but what it tells me is that it's really good television, to be honest with you. It's really gripped me entirely, as it obviously has done for quite
Yes.
some time now, as Dawson's
Yes.
Creek. I felt season two as a whole. I'd like
Okay.
to start off, I think, by saying
hmm
this. Yes, it's been double the size of season one,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
In terms of
And
episodes. Yeah.
in terms of episodes, maybe as well because our rules with this show, Discovering Dawson's Creek, were less strict in season one than
Yeah.
they have been in, our output, our release schedules and things like that have
Yeah.
meant that I've watched season two far more consistently than I
Y-
watched season one.
Yes.
And it has just been, it's felt like such a step up,
Okay.
I think, from season one. And it has felt like the level of emotional investment has only gotten higher and higher. And to be honest, that's been the case through the season as well. That's not just season to season. I think that has been the case through the season. There are things that happen in these couple of episodes that countless times in the past, you know, 3 months or whatever it's been that we've covered season two,
Yeah.
4 months probably, um, then that I've said I wished certain things would happen, and I really didn't want other certain things to happen.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, one of those very hard things that I really didn't want to see happen does happen within the finale episode, ultimately,
Yeah.
and a bit in the previous episode, for reasons that I understand, for reasons that I suppose if it was ever going to happen, it's better it being like this than in some sort of horrible way. I'm being very vague with my language. No
Yeah. I
means
mean, we'll
of
get
getting
into
in.
it once we talk about it, but
Obviously, we're getting into it all. Obviously, we're getting the binder out. We're getting the synopsis
yes.
done, and we're getting into all the heavy emotion. But well done, season two of Dawson's Creek. First and
Okay.
foremost, what a U-turn of a finale you had from the finale of your
Yeah.
first season.
Yes. Yeah, things definitely develop pretty interestingly with characters. Um Again, the writing I think is really well done in terms of calling back to things that have been previously set up in really interesting ways. So, we're not dealing with a ton of plot holes with our characters or forgotten kind of plot lines. Everything really is well connected. Um and yeah, we go on a pretty big emotional journey, I think, particularly with Dawson and our feelings towards him.
Yeah,
I think
it's very
we,
up and down.
yeah, I think you started off very much not caring very much for Dawson, and then we saw him mature as he was meant to be, kind of another year older going into this
Yeah,
season. Um, and that kind of showed through the character, being able to handle situations better, um, not being as self-serving or selfish or out of touch or unself-aware. He was really attuned to other people's feelings and helping other people and knowing what's right for him and not, centering himself, but kind of still kind of sticking to things that he felt were important, but not kind of pushing them on other people. So he had
yeah,
grown a lot, and then these 2 episodes kind of retract quite a bit of that.
They do, but it's almost not in an annoying way.
No, it's
Like half a season ago, I would have been complaining to high hell
yeah,
about what happens with Dawson in this finale in particular,
yeah,
because it would have just felt like the same old back and forth nonsense that I absolutely hate. Oh, he's good. Oh, he's not. Oh, he's good. Oh, he's not. All the damn time.
yeah,
What they managed to do was make this have weight. They managed to make it make sense
yeah,
and not. It was just him doing it for the sake of doing it, or something that the writers had decided, oh, let's throw, another bit of drama in there. It actually doesn't feel like that. Maybe because there's more people
y
involved in what he does
yes.
wrong.
Yes, and I think I think the Dawson we kind of knew and didn't really care for before would do something like this and expect not to suffer any consequences or be surprised if he suffered any
I mean,
consequences or
that's also true,
defend his
yeah.
action in a really kind of gross way. But here, he does what he does. He feels that it's right for the person he cares about, and he's also willing to accept the consequences. He says a clear line of
Mm,
being aware of the consequences and accepting it because of the greater good for this person that he loves. So, I think that's what makes it a little different. It's still like a bad move and it's still like, "Oh, Dawson," but it feels like there is more awareness behind it than past decisions. Like, when he read Joey's diary and he was really
well,
trying to
exactly.
justify that and not take accountability and getting all in
Yeah.
his feelings about something personal she said. That was kind of a like, ugh, gross Dawson. But I think there's more thought to it, as you said, more people involved, and he is willing to take the consequences of it as opposed to defend it to the ground and not um understand what's going on and making himself the
Yes.
victim in the situation.
Well, I certainly want to talk about that in very specific terms, but of course,
Yes.
before we do that, we do have one episode to discuss, which is the
Yes.
penultimate episode of the
Yes.
season, the setup of the drama of the finale,
Yes.
which is rather annoyingly called Changes, because I don't believe the David Bowie song is even sang or
No,
heard
or
in the
referenced.
episode or
It's
referenced in the
just
episode. Don't know why it's called that really. But yes, the get the binder out,
yes, we got
get
the
the
binder.
synopsis out.
Okay, so Changes, episode 221, Growing Pains. Dawson is
Mm,
floundering to come up with a proper interview subject for his film class final project, and rather than turn the camera on himself in a self aware examination of his own fears, he infuriates Joey by dredging up her painful past and interviewing her father. As an example of a man who has overcome tremendous odds by making a heroic life change. Meanwhile, Pacey's lifelong turned upside down when meanwhile, Pacey's life gets turned upside down when Mr. Joseph McPhee comes to town and announces that he is taking Andy and Jack back to Providence with him, while Jen begins making her own plans to leave town, feeling like she may have nowhere left to turn.
yes. Yes. Jen's a bit interesting actually. She obviously
Yeah,
fairly typically gets the kind of, here are two couples with weighty plot lines, and then there's Jen.
Jen.
Um,
Yeah.
which is always unfortunate. But Jen Jen goes through the ringer as well in these kind of episodes, because she is obviously still reeling off Abby Morgan's death and
Yes,
all that
and the
kind of
fallout
stuff.
with Grams.
As the fallout with Grams ends up calling her parents back in
Yes.
New York, doesn't she? And
Yes.
they end up, when can I come home properly? Can I come home properly?
Yeah.
It's not going well here. We've had a fallout and all that kind of stuff. And she's not, it ends up being that she's just not heard
Welcome
very
back.
well.
Yeah.
by her parents, and she wouldn't be welcomed back there at
Yeah.
the moment. Now, we obviously have heard all about what Jen was like in New York, but we never
Yeah.
saw it, did we? So we don't
No.
quite know for ourselves how bad it is, how
Yeah.
serious it all was. And I'm now thinking that's the first time we've ever directly heard her speak to her parents, or at least attempt to speak to her
Yeah.
parents, and them directly say, "No, we don't want you back." At the moment, quote unquote, sure, okay, whatever, but the fundamental "no, we don't want you back" is still there. So it just got me thinking about how serious all this must have been, because maybe it's a part of Jen that I've kind of forgotten a bit about.
Yeah, I mean, because we didn't see it, and we just kind of hear in happenstance, we see the boyfriend, she got caught having sex with him in her parents' bed, and that was the big inciting incident,
Yeah,
and then we've subsequently heard about her crazy partying, and at this point, we're thinking she's doing all this at, like, 13, 14, 15 because
yeah,
they're 15 now, so if she was doing all of this then, like, how old must she have been to be doing these things and upsetting her parents and it building and building to her having sex with someone in their bed.
yeah,
Um but I think the issue, I think, of making it difficult for her is she's felt like she's had a shift. She's felt like she's had a change, and because they're not there to witness it, they don't acknowledge it, and that I think is what maybe
mm,
hurts her most of all.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And you know, we leave her, I suppose, in the next episode as well, having found a little bit more of a home in Cape Side,
Yeah.
which emotional home as well as a physical one,
Yeah.
which I like that, I do. But this episode is tough for Jen
Yeah.
because she realizes that even after all this, even after this change that we have seen from her, we have seen within her, they don't believe she's actually had it. They're simply seeing you've fallen out with your grandmother again. No,
It must be your
and
fault kind of
it
thing,
must be your
and
fault. Yeah.
yeah, and, I mean, it has her even contemplating some really dark things that Jack kind of
Oh yeah.
calls attention to and really concerns him.
Yeah.
She's writing some report for class and it deals with suicide, so we kind of get that little nugget in there, and
Yeah.
then when kind of events unfold, putting our characters in a very serious situation, um, the ice house being on fire and all of this kind of thing, she's very
Next
much
episode. Yes, of
yes, in
course.
the next episode, she very much kind of does something that has Jack very worried for her because and I think
Yeah.
this phone call is the inciting incident to her, um, really feeling, like she is alone and she doesn't have anybody.
I think probably as the last two episodes of any season of television should be or should feel like, they do feel like a part one and part two of the same story, don't they?
Yes, yes, the flow of kind of events and our characters where they're sitting, it really immediately kind of flows into the next
Yeah.
episode, for sure.
Um, and again, I mean, there's another element of being able to just commend the show for not being afraid to deal with any horrible subject matter.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, we're talking a lot about flow and things like that. So just to jump ahead a little bit, I will warn you
Yeah.
because it's just because it's in my head right now. I constantly talk about how the show does the writing really well in terms of connecting everything and the flow and plot lines. Season 3 is going to open with stuff that just kind of disappears and fades off that deal with Jen. So,
Ah,
now that
okay.
we're talking about Jen's story and things with her and the interconnectivity and the flow of the events really feeling connected, it's just having me think about the little brief, I think, first couple episodes of season 3 that will just inevitably just drop a really kind of interesting plot point that they bring up with Jen. So,
No.
just
So
a
so
warning
what
for that.
so what you're saying is that it flows well for Jen from season 2 into season 3, but then at the start of season 3 won't flow well into the rest of season 3 for her?
They
Or the
bring in
opposite of
they
that?
bring in something that is meant to kind of shake things up at the beginning of season 3, and then they reveal
Okay.
something about this shakeup that deals with Jen, and then we just never really
No, that's a
entertain
shame.
much of it again.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what that
Yeah.
is, of course, and it won't be very far off that we are
No,
seeing
it
what that
definitely
is,
won't.
obviously, will it? Um, but that's Jen in this episode. I mean,
Yeah.
Pacey and Andy are just devastated in this episode because as soon as Andy's dad comes back, it's Jack who ends up calling him to come
Yeah,
back because
thinking
Andy's
that
getting
he'll
worse and worse and
yeah,
worse.
and he thinks that dad is gonna stay home and be there for the family,
Yeah.
and that him making this kind of stable environment will
Which is
be
a
the thing
perfectly
to help Andy.
reasonable thought.
Yes, but no, his decision is, "I'm taking you back to Providence." So Jack, is also blindsided by this choice, and Andy's upset with him because, "Why did you call him here? Now he's trying to take me away."
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but
no,
al
God, there was one thing, I can't remember which episode it was in. John Witter comes back. Um, oh God,
it's in
get
the
rid of
second
his
second
is
episode,
it
I
in the
believe,
is
right?
it in the
In the finale.
finale?
Yes, because at this point he's talking about how much he misses Andy, and so Andy,
That's
is
right,
yeah.
yeah. But I mean,
Um,
what ends up happening, obviously, is Jack and Andy's father does take them back. It takes Andy
Andy,
and her mother
yeah,
back to
back to
Providence, leaves
Providence.
Jack,
Yeah.
but it's horrible to watch. It's horrible to watch Andy and Pacey go through this sort of, wait, can we actually stay together? This is horrible. Like, I really want
Yeah.
this. It's obviously very, very difficult, but my God, please don't go. Please don't leave me. It's
Yeah, and the
horrific.
yes, and they've affected each other's lives so intensely, impactfully that, it adds those stakes because we've built up this relationship that it's like, he's given so much to her in terms of making her feel safe and comfortable and someone to lean on when she's having these difficult times with her mental health, and he has been able to become this, great student and see potential in himself and get this
Yeah.
kind of academic and personal confidence where he's been kind of beaten down and been undervalued for so long. So they've given so much to each other on such a deep level that to kind of break that up is really heartbreaking and tragic. But ultimately, what I think is really interesting about how this episode plays out is that it ultimately does, all these men telling Andy what to do, and then it ultimately ends up being her choice, which I loved that kind of
That's
switch up
true.
by the end
Yeah,
of it.
that
Um,
is true.
and
But it doesn't
um,
make it any less
no,
heartbreaking to
and it
watch.
also yeah, and what makes it difficult as well is that Pacey kind of sees himself as a failure because of this happening. So, we have this
Yeah.
plot point that I mentioned in the synopsis of Dawson trying to find a subject for his like film project,
Mm.
and he thinks about talking to Pacey. So he sits down with Pacey, he's kind of interviewing him to talk about his big shift into being this like great student and all the good things Andy has brought to him, but he's reeling from this fact that he may lose her, and that he maybe isn't good enough to help her through this, and he says he's no hero. He feels like he failed
Yeah.
her. So that's what also just kind of adds to the pain of the situation. So they do
It
try
is
to have
horrible.
this yeah, so they do
It's
try
so
to have this
horrible.
nice, the dad is very much Pacey tries to talk to the dad and kind of calls Pacey's acts act to try to keep her to stay as a bit selfish, and so he also has to kind of come to that realization that, yeah, me wanting her here is a little bit selfish, but I can't lose her, and I feel like I'm just as good for her as well. Um, and
Thing
even
is,
Jack tries to tell the dad as well that Pacey has been really good for her, but
I think
um
this it's such an interesting. It's become more and more fascinating as a show in terms of dealing with fathers. I
yeah.
think because obviously Mitch is quite light and fairly
Yeah,
easygoing
I
as
mean,
a
and
father. There's
yes, and
been the odd
we've had our
issue,
frustrations with him in
of
terms of how he's
course.
handled this Gale thing, and he gets his moments too, in terms of
Yeah,
dealing with coming to terms with that whole situation with Gale leaving. So we do get a
it,
bunch of interesting father
absolutely.
stuff in these 2
Yeah,
episodes.
absolutely. But then you've got I forget his name, Andy and Jack's dad, who is really cold
Yeah,
and distant,
yeah.
and I'm doing this because this is what's right. How do you know
And
what's right? You haven't been
exactly, you haven't
there
been
for
here, and Jack tells him that, and it's like, I'm doing it my way because this is more convenient for me. I need to stay with my
well,
business and da da da
exactly.
da whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then for God's sake, you've got John Witter, who's just the world's worst man
Yeah.
ever. I hate him with every fibre of my being. And then Mike Potter, who
Yes, we're getting all the
means
dads. I think I just,
Mike
like
Potter
yeah.
means so good in his life. He wants to do well and constantly does the wrong thing. And
Yes.
he's a devastating character. And it's devastating the kind of things that obviously go on with him, I think, in these couple of episodes, because
Yeah.
he becomes the subject, obviously, of Dawson's final film project, which I think is a great idea. He's up for it. He's more than willing to
Yeah.
have these conversations, to, get it all laid out, because he is fully ready to be a better man. And he's
Yes.
trying and trying and trying, but is he? And is he getting sucked back in? And what is he doing? And
Yeah.
this is what it would be easy to hate Mike Potter for all the bad things he's done
Yeah.
in his life, for having the affair with Joey's,
On
on
Joey's
Joey's
mom
mother
while she
when
was
she
sick.
was
Yeah.
dying,
Yeah.
for going to prison and being a drug smuggler, and
Yeah.
all these kind of stuff that he does. Why then, in every single damn scene we get of Mike Potter, is he so heartwarming to other people?
Yeah. And like the fact that Joey is so happy to see her, just so elated to see him, wanting to build out the ice house and have these big
Yeah,
dreams for their family, and being a grandpa, and um you know just making this solid family unit for her, which is something she has not had for so long, and had to kind of sit back and witness Dawson have that and complain about it constantly.
and that
um
that grows and grows in this episode, doesn't
yeah,
it? Him building up the ice house, getting it all nice and
making
all
all these
looking
future
good.
plans. Yeah,
All
and
these plans, everything's such a positive in the Mike Potter category in
yes.
this episode.
Yeah.
Does it remain a positive in the Mike Potter category into the finale? You could arguably say yes, because
Well,
he still means well.
he still means well, and he's, like, literally said, "Okay, yeah, maybe if I just do this one little thing, it'll get us a little bit ahead, and then, I'll stop," kind of is what his mindset was. Because yeah, at the end is when Dawson actually does catch him, you know,
Yes, that's
with the
right.
drugs. And so Dawson kind of then makes it this thing where he has to make this big decision. But yeah, I mean, you can tell he's trying. You can tell he feels remorseful for the things he does. So when Dawson's interviewing him, he's bringing up all these things, and bringing up his fears, and admits that he wasn't, like, really a man in terms of how he was handling those situations and how regretful he is. And Joey having to sit there and hear it, because she's kind of made peace with all of that finally.
Yeah,
Dawson kind of dredging it up is just really
yeah.
frustrating for her. So ultimately, she does implore him to turn the camera on himself. So then Dawson kind of has his own fears about doing that, and admits that, oh, well, I'm afraid if I look at myself, I'll see, that I am kind of just not this good person. And you'll see how, what a loser I am. And you won't want to be with me anymore. So,
But it's
all of the
but
things
you've
that
got
we kind
to,
of felt about Dawson early on are things
yeah,
that
because
he
he's got
was
to do
afraid to
that.
see. Yeah, but he was afraid to do that. So I think that was an interesting kind of way to twist this project, that he's kind of bouncing from person to person to figure out who to do it on. He lands
Yeah.
on Mike. Joey can't hates the idea of this. It really brings up bad things for her. She implores him to turn it on himself, and then his reaction to that, I think, is really interesting. He doesn't want to look at who he is because he thinks she won't like it,
It's
which I
almost
think
like
plays into
he doesn't want to become as self-aware as he needs to be,
exactly,
because
because we've seen him be very unself-aware,
yeah,
in a lot of this. So I like that, I think the show is aware of how people feel about the Dawson of Dawson's Creek, and kind of play into that in an interesting way,
yeah,
that and kind of gives him a little bit of a pass, that Dawson does the things that frustrate us because he's unself-aware. So it's not a purposeful thing of his. It's just him not being aware of himself, and this project maybe being the thing that will finally force him to do that.
Yeah,
So
and it's what makes obviously what he ends up doing in the finale fascinating, and not just this, "Oh God, Dawson, you've gone and
I'm the
ruined it
victim,
again"
woe is me.
situation.
Yeah, I'm ruining things because of my, you know, uh, ego or my savior
Yeah,
complex or anything like that. Yeah.
it's what gives it so much more depth, because it's actually him doing it for a self-aware reason,
Yeah.
and for a much more mature reason,
Yeah.
and it's not the reasoning that we don't understand.
Yeah.
It's why he gets to that reasoning as
Yeah.
opposed to what is more important, what is more important in your life.
And what is
I thought Joey's happiness was
was more
more
important
important in
than
your life,
anything. Yes,
Dawson.
and
You've been
yes.
going on and saying that
That's
for
all he
ages
wants.
now,
Yes, it's all
you
he
know.
cares about, and, it's
But
the
no,
reason they broke up.
all of a
Yeah,
sudden, he might as well be John Witter.
exactly, and it's, like, a little bit of him maybe not seeing that, like, this is kind of what ended things with you in the first place, her not really being fully
Right.
fulfilled or happy, and you kind of taking this choice away from her puts you back in that situation of not seeing what she needs fully, kind of
Mm.
thing. Or seeing what you say you think is best for her. You say that you understand what's best for her, but I don't know that you fully do, Dawson. So,
Well, I
yeah, I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
just to kind of wrap up the events of this
Yes.
episode, Andy does end up ultimately making the choice to go with her father because she feels like, sure, I have good days, but I need help. I understand I need help, so I think
Yeah.
I'm going to go with him. I'm going to get help, and I'm going to come back to you, feeling
Mm.
so much better. They
So
have a very sweet.
it's not a breakup, is it, as
No,
such? It
yes,
is just,
it's
I
I'm
have
gonna
to
get
leave for
better.
a while.
Yes, I'm gonna get better. This is what I think I need to do ultimately to get better, and I'm gonna come back to you, kind of thing. So they have this very sweet, reminiscent date of all the places, they had their first dance
Yes.
and first
Yeah.
kiss, and it's very sweet. But she ultimately makes the choice herself to leave. Jack
Yeah.
ultimately just chooses to stay. The father does say, "I'm probably gonna have to sell this house," so he does let Jen move in with him in the house until that eventually happens. So we get a
Yeah.
coming together, a really strong friendship bond building between Jack and Jen that leads us into the next episode, and will be a really great kind of relationship throughout the rest of the show. Jack and Jen kind of being this
Okay.
kind of unit, this great little family unit, the two of them, and maybe the three of them.
Um,
As we see them, what happens at the end
we
of
do. Yes, we
yes,
do.
yes. So
Yes.
they all become a very sweet unit. And
Interesting,
then
really, that
yes.
happens. I think
Yes, it's really
that
sweet.
those two are the ones that are drawn together
Yes,
as
because I mean it
as
started.
almost the outcasts, I suppose,
Yes,
aren't they?
and that's kind of how they, I think, view their relationship pretty much. The newbies kind of coming in, like Jen was the first kind of new
Yeah.
to the crew in that first
Yeah.
episode, and kind of and then even their kind of coming together in the first place was them trying to be set up by their friends was that kind of whole start of things.
Yes, of course it
Um,
was. Yeah.
yes. So, yeah, the unit kind of that forms with them is really sweet. And then we end this episode. Joey's really happy, excited about everything happening. Dawson ultimately does try to, do the project on himself. Apologizes to Mike, makes
Yeah.
things right with Joey. Things seem to be going well. There's some little fun comedic scenes of Dawson trying to um, do construction and help Mike out, and like he's
Mm.
doing everything wrong, which does lead to a very sweet gesture for Joey kind of at the end of the episode as well. Joey says like everything is so perfect, all it's missing is the white picket fence. So Dawson stays up
Yeah.
all night with his very crappy
Yeah.
construction skills and makes her a little white picket fence. So
Wh
we see him
which,
do this beautiful gesture for her,
this is
and
what I
and
mean.
she's
At this
so
point, we're
happy.
thinking, "Oh
Yeah,
god, this is good.
yeah,
Everything's good. It's been hard on the other side, but
yeah,
this right here is good. And then he has to
Yeah.
go Snoopy Snoopy. He doesn't Snoopy Snoop.
He
He just
he's
happens to
returning
see
he's
something.
returning Mike's tools because he took the tools to make the fence. He's returning the tools, and he sees in the back that Mike is, trading some drugs with another man that he had met
Very,
previously in the
very
episode.
large bags of cocaine, I'd like to point out as
Yeah,
well. Like a
so
lot.
he's being handed some drugs. Dawson sees this, and this is where we end the episode. So now Dawson's kind of in this really weird position. So
I'd prefer to think of him Snoopy Snooping. Is Mike Potter taking the drugs and ruining his life? No.
no,
Am I saying drug smugglers should be forgiven? Not necessarily. But am I saying that Mike Potter, I believe, is a good man, ultimately, who has
yeah,
done bad things?
yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I do
And
believe that.
yes. And considering Dawson has witnessed the change and witnessed the good in him and witnessed how happy this is making Joey, and that he is trying to do better ultimately by these easy means, because that's kind of all maybe he knows. Dawson not taking that into consideration is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, let's get the binder back out then, Janine, for the finale of
Yes.
season 2 of Dawson's Creek. It's called Parental Discretion
Discretion
Advised.
advised. Yes.
And you know what? There needs to be parental discretion advised for the amount of annoyance that happens.
Yes.
Or just
So
is it annoyance or is it just real?
it's
I said the
frustration.
word upset and frustration before. Yeah,
Yeah.
frustration's
Yeah.
great. And I said the word upset. It does make me upset because why this is allowed or why they allow this to happen, why Dawson allows this to happen at the end is so beyond me and
Yeah.
my mentality that I
Yeah.
cannot understand why you would all of a sudden feel the need to be so righteous
Yeah.
about a man you actually like.
Yeah. Yes, and you've seen, despite doing it by these horrible means, like, understand where he came from, understand that, like, he doesn't know any other way. And, he's doing it for the right reasons, albeit a terrible thing. So some level of understanding, of seeing the want in this man to change should have at least
Yeah.
been factored in to the decision. Um,
Yes.
and it wasn't. Okay, so episode 222, Parental Discretion Advised, a heartbreaking season finale.
Mm.
When Dawson discovers that Joey's father is back to his drug dealing ways, Dawson's decision of what's right for his friend over what's right for their friendship could tear her family apart and forever change his relationship with Joey. Meanwhile, for the first time in his life, Pacey stands up to his father. Uh,
Mm.
Father's painful abuse. They put the character names in between in
They do,
parentheses, so
yes,
it
they do.
throws me out. Guest star John Finn, like, so it's messing up my reading. Stands up to his father's painful abuse. Grams desperately tries to reconcile with Jen and bring her home, and Gail struggles over her decision to keep her family together.
Yeah. We started the last one with Jen. I suppose we can wrap up Jen's little bit here
Yes. Yeah.
because it's actually, I mean, it's quite nice. Does it happen a little bit quickly for my liking, Janine? Yes, it does.
Yes, because of course we have some really hot, literally hot plots to really put our focus on in
Yes.
this big finale. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think Jen, so she's living with Jack, they're kind of bonding and talking, and um she's feeling very unwanted in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
She was gonna get about to get on a bus and just go anywhere. And Jack caught her and said, "No, come live with me." So in the opening of this episode, we see Grams, having let things settle. She shows up at the school and is like, "Hey, Jen, I really want you to come home. I'm sorry
Mm.
about, what had happened." And Jen is just being very stubborn. And I love that Jack kind of calls her out about her being very one-sided about this whole situation. Jack kind of imploring her to at least talk to her grams and maybe make amends and hear her out, she immediately takes it as him not wanting her to be there, and
Yeah.
him trying to get rid of her. And then he says, "Is this what you did to her? Like, you took all her words and mixed them all around to make them sound like terrible, like for yourself," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it gives us some insight into the headspace that she's in. Um and yeah, so she's writing this paper about suicide, so we do drop that little nugget. So
Mm.
later,
Yeah.
they're all studying at the ice house, um and a fire starts. As they're studying, they all kind of bust in to see the fire happening. Everyone's kind of panicked, and she's just kind of standing there watching it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone's like freaking out, and she's just standing there. And Jack kind of clocks it. So once, they're out of the fire, they're back at his house, he asks her about it. He's like, "That fire was happening and you were not moving. You were literally standing there. Do I need to be worried about this? Like, are you having these kinds of like suicidal thoughts?" And she says, "No, like I know I want to live. I know I don't want to die, but I also didn't care enough to let it happen."
Yeah.
So, she admits this really dark kind of thought to him.
It
Um,
it is, but it's a very, I suppose, maturely intelligent one
yeah,
that, to deal with. It's an awful subject matter, and it's a subject matter that, when dealt with in some teen shows, can be absolutely reviled because it's done in such a tone deaf way
yeah,
that it can either end up making it worse for the viewing public and making them think that, just like, it doesn't actually mean anything to go and do that, which it
yeah,
obviously does.
yeah,
That should go without saying. Or it kind of weirdly glorifies it in this
yeah,
sort of really dark, horrible way.
yeah,
This doesn't do any of that, does it? This is just very matter of
honest.
fact
Yeah,
about it, which is exactly what you should be in
yeah,
these discussions. The absolute best way to be in
yeah,
discussing something like that is to be totally, totally matter of factly honest about it.
yes,
And
yeah.
that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and so I like that she has Jack to kind of share this with, and he kind of talks to her, "Well, our situation is pretty dire. Like, my dad's gonna sell this house, and then what are we gonna do?
Mm.
I think you need to hear out your grams and figure this out." And ultimately, at the end, she does go to Grams, and she says, uh, I think,
I'm
we need to
sorry,
lay I'm
Grams. Can
sorry,
I
we
have
need
her back?
yes, and we need to lay out some ground rules, like, I
Yeah,
don't need you to kind of use your religion against me in these kind of verbal situations that we have. I need you to respect that aspect of our relationship, that is not something I believe in. Um, but, I wanna come back, and I'm sorry for what I said, and, I wanna make this a home and a family with you, and, can we bring in a third and have Jack come stay as well?
yeah.
And
There's she
Gramps
basically says, like, there's
the
somebody
he
else that
somebody
needs a
else that
place
needs a
too.
home, that
He's
needs a
over
home.
there.
Yes, and so, yeah, she says yes, and so that starts, like, cute little family unit of
Yeah.
Grams, Jen, and Jack.
And this is
Um,
because Grams is a good person.
yes,
Grams
yes.
means well. These ground rules, I think, are absolutely necessary and a good
Yeah.
idea. A
Yes,
great idea.
and a
Perfect.
great opening of communication in terms of talking about
Yes.
these things, honestly. So, yeah, great kind
Now,
of
the
wrap up with Jen's.
celebratory part of the episode, please, Janine. The actual part
Pacey.
I was going, oh, God, yes,
Yeah.
final. Can I
So,
just say, can I just say it in a very excitable way, please?
yes.
Please. Pacey smacks his dad in the
Yes. So
face
we see
very
throughout the
hard.
episode we see throughout the episode that Pacey's just kind of getting berated by his father, and he's in mourning right now, Pacey.
Yeah, I mean, he
Andy
is,
has
yes.
left. He's really kind of letting school fall by the wayside because he just can't focus because he misses her so much. Um, and his father is bugging him, talking about, your teacher called and told me you missed this test. What's wrong with you? And kind of, laying in on him when he's at a very vulnerable time.
Mm,
Um,
He put some
And then
digs into Andie's personality as well.
yes, he even says, "Oh, just because your crazy cuckoo girlfriend left, you
Mm,
think you're a tough guy now or something." And even before that, his dad smacked him in the face because he talked back
that's
to him.
right.
Yes,
Yes, that's
and
right.
and yeah, and I wanna say, I don't know if this is when he says the line about Mike, the no matter kinda, and because he's been kind of snooping around the ice house because he's gotten
Yes,
a clue that, like, Mike might be back to his old ways, so he's been kind of
yes.
snooping around,
Pacey says
and
something to the effect of whatever Mike Potter does, he's 1,000 times the
times the
father
father
you've
that
ever
you
been.
are. Yes. So at a certain point, John does smack Pacey and he kind of just takes it. And then later when he says something disparaging about Andy, he punches his father and it's so
Now
satisfying.
look, I know I'm celebrating. I'm not for punching your own father every once in a while, let's not go
But
around just
in
doing
this
that for no
case,
reason.
John is terrible to Pacey and
John Witter is the world's worst
unnecessarily.
man.
Yes, he's literally, like, mocking him in front of his coworkers because he's, like, the chief of police, so his other little deputies or whatever,
Right.
he's mocking him, and he makes that comment, and so that's when Pacey punches him. Um, and, uh
The worst thing about it though,
yeah.
yes, the audible cheer I let out when I was watching
Yeah.
that episode when that happened, very much so. I'm running around the street going "Yay, Pacey" doing a cheerleading dance.
Yeah.
But the goal of John Witter
To
to
even say
10
something
minutes
like that.
later to say something like that in the first place, but to 10 minutes later come crawling back going, "I'm sorry, I was so
So you did not feel any
terrible."
tenderness from John Witter's apology
I
then?
got no tenderness from John Witter's apology.
Not even
John
Pacey's
Witter
reaction. Not even Pacey's reaction to it.
no, look, I
'Cause I think
understand
Joshua Jackson's
that.
acting in that scene, Pacey's
Oh, it's
reaction to this
unbelievable.
emotional response he gets from his father for
Yes.
once ever is what sells it for me. Of course, I still am not gonna like this
Yes,
man,
look,
but
it's
seeing
unbelievable. Do I
Pacey have this reaction is so beautiful, I think.
totally couldn't agree more. Also, do agree that John Witter's reaction in that moment is genuine.
Yes.
I believe that to
Okay.
be genuine. I believe it to finally be John Witter realizing what he's done.
Yes.
But you do not do that quickly. You
Well
can't do it that
I
quickly
think
after doing something like that.
had we
And
seen the
after but after years and years, after 16 years of
but
abuse, it should take less than a day to be coming back going, "I know I've been a terrible
no, 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 no.
father."
But it's not this just coming out of nowhere. It's him hearing it from someone unexpected. It's hearing it from someone who's outside of what he chooses to see out of his son. So, had we maybe seen this phone call with Andy, maybe your opinion would be different. But Andy called,
Possibly, yes,
and
okay.
what he says is Andy called to talk to Pacey, and he got to talking to her. And Andy says to him, "Your son is my hero. He is so good to me. I'm so proud of him. The way he's turned it around with his grades, he's amazing. He has been there for me when I had no one." She tells him all of these amazing things about his son that he never chose to see and he never helped him see because of how he treated him. So the fact that this outside source is telling him all of these amazing things that he had no idea of because he never bothered to pay attention, I think is click something for him and says, "Oh my gosh, like my son is this incredible person to someone and I had no idea."
Yes, I
So,
agree that that is what happened in John Witter's head, and I think I agree with you that personally, I feel like we should have seen that phone call.
yeah.
Um, However, just like I fundamentally believe Mike Potter to be a well-meaning good man, I fundamentally believe John Witter to be a poor-meaning bad man.
Yes.
who
Okay.
is doing this out of guilt, not love.
Fair. Fair.
He's
Fair.
coming back, he's crawling back out of guilt, not
Yeah.
love,
That
which
is
is
fair. That
wrong,
is a fair assessment. And even when, he says, Andy wanted me to give something to you, and he gives him kind of like this mousy hug. And
right?
Pacey, never getting this form of affection, says, "Oh, dad," and pulls him in and just cries on his shoulder because
Yeah.
he's like, "Dad, I miss her. I miss her so much." And he's like, "I know, son, I know." And it's a very nice moment. Um,
It is a
and
nice moment. Does it change anything? Please don't tell me,
okay. Okay.
but does it change anything? Because if
That is a
it
fair
does,
question.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if it does. If it doesn't, which I'm more likely to believe given what I know,
Yeah.
then what a surprise, I will say.
Yeah, that is a fair thing to speculate on going forward. Is this just a brief moment of feeling guilty or somebody, telling you something that you didn't know? Or is this a road to making things better in the long run? So yeah,
Right?
so that's kind of where we leave things with Pacey. And then
It
we
is.
get
But
into the
you are
big
right,
meaty
100%.
yeah.
Joshua Jackson, phenomenal
It's
in that
phenomenal
episode.
performance in this episode, yes. And then we get into the meaty juiciness. Dawson
Mm.
really kind of struggling. Well, just to kind of touch quickly on Mitch and Gail. Gail, has
Yes,
decided
that's
she's
right.
leaving. Mitch kind of realizes he doesn't want her to go. He gets on his knees, takes her hands,
Finally.
finally asks her to stay. Please don't go. Let's make this work. And she's like, well, when it was taking you so long to figure out what you wanted, I kind of
Mm.
was able to use that time to think about what I wanted. And I now I was kind of just doing this
Yes.
to get away, but now I actually really kind of want this. So I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So I love her kind of realizing
Yeah.
that she wants
I
this for
mean, it's
herself actually. So even Mitch finally giving her what she wanted, she's made the decision. So I think that was a
I th
really kind of good thing for him to hear and have to deal with and
I
finally
think it's the
seeing him.
best
Yeah.
it's the best ending of the season for the both of them,
Yeah.
to be honest. Him realizing that he did want her, but understanding why it's better to not, and her actually following through with leaving
Yeah, her
properly.
decision. Yes, and so I like and I've really liked following Mitch and Gales because, like, obviously I've seen the show multiple times, but kind of revisiting it here, I realize I
Yeah.
really do like the trajectory of their storylines and how it gets peppered into the plot. It's really, because you think, oh, the show's about these teens, and who cares about the parents? But they've made Mitch and Gail and the actors
Oh,
themselves have made their story and their journey really captivating and interesting to follow. And especially now that I'm an adult watching it, um,
well, yeah, I mean,
in a
the
marriage, so
parents
it
are
makes it far
great.
more interesting to like, I'm paying attention more
Absolutely.
than I think I would have, or did in the past. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
um, and so
The
now to
parents
the
are great.
big yes, and so now to the but all the parents, I mean, we talked about all the fathers in this episode, all
Yeah.
very kind of bringing interesting dynamics into the show. So,
And
yes, the
one
big meaty
particularly horrible one.
yes. The big meaty finale here with the Dawson, Joey, Mike Potter situation.
Yes, the ice
Um,
house is burning to the
yes,
ground.
Dawson really struggling this whole episode to figure out what is best to do. He kind of vaguely asks his mom without any detail,
Mm,
if someone you love has someone in their life who's done something wrong, how do you handle that situation? Do you tell the person you love about this person and what they've done? And his mom says, well, you can either tell that person that you love about this person they care about, or you can go to that person directly and
mm.
implore them to tell the truth. And Dawson's like,
And you know
okay,
what
so
you know what the right thing to do is? Is to go to the person who's done something wrong.
yes, so he goes to Mike and he tells him
Dawson.
he at first kind of teases that he knows what he did. Then he does go to Mike and say, "Hey, you need to talk to her. Like, why are you doing this? I saw you, da 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 da, da, whatever." And he kind of tries to make excuses to Dawson. This is why I did it, da 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 da. And that is not enough for Dawson. Dawson feels like
See,
he
this is
needs to tell Joey. He kind of puts this pressure on a timeline kind of thing. And
this is
ultimately,
this is
at
this
this
is this
point,
is the thing.
yeah,
You need, as a human being, Dawson,
yeah,
James Vanderbeek. Not James Van Der Beek. James Van Der Beek's done nothing wrong. Well, he probably has at some point. I don't know. As a human being, you have gone. You have spoken to the individual whose responsibility it is
Yeah.
to out themselves as doing whatever. In this situation, cocaine dealing. Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. That is where you then leave it.
Yeah.
That's your responsibility. Done. You're
Yes.
finished with this
Yes.
whole situation now.
Yeah.
Go away. Out the door.
And I mean,
Stand over there and shut up.
I would contemplate, if a lot of time has passed, if you see that he's still doing this and he still hasn't told his family, then at that point, then I would say maybe
A
talk to
little bit
Joey.
more. A little bit more understandable. Yes, true.
Then maybe at
Not
that
in the
point talk
same
to Joey.
day.
Yes,
Why do
then
people do things
yes,
in the same day?
yeah, like give him some time to figure out what he's doing.
I'm annoyed.
Yes. I mean, obviously Mike is doing something wrong. He
Yes, of course he is.
he has good motivations. He has a good, hope for what this could bring for his family if he just does this one thing. So if he does it, give him the time to figure out how he's going to handle it. Is he going to tell Joey? Is he going to continue doing it? Is Dawson approaching him enough to get him to stop? Dawson didn't really leave much time for any of that decision making to come into play.
No, he didn't. He didn't at all.
No.
Before just going straight to Joey and be like, "This is what's happening, and
Yes, and I think
sorry,
the
but you're going
fire
to have to go. He's
yes.
going to have to go
Yeah.
back to prison."
I think in his mind, the fire escalated that because now
Of
this
course,
situation is
yes,
putting Joey in danger. Somebody started that fire because of this drugs and this scenario and
yes,
everything. So
yes.
they're
That is
all there studying. Somebody starts this fire. Mike tries to like get rid of the drugs, but the fire, as he's trying to do this, the fire gets bigger and bigger and takes over. Um, and
Dawson himself does actually save Mike Potter, which is
yes, so he
a
saves
good
him.
thing.
And, he's very kind of cold about it, Joey's like, "Oh, they wanna see the hero, the medics to make sure you're okay." And he's like, you know, "I'm no hero," kind of thing, and he's just very kind of cold to Mike, and it's a really weird thing, and Joey's like, "Why did he talk to you like that, Dad?" kind of thing.
Of
Um,
course, Joey thinks Dawson saying "I'm no hero" is weird because he's been parading around the
as this
entire
kind of
town.
savior this the whole time. So, yes, um yeah, so I think that is maybe what informs his decision is because, okay, this situation is now putting Joey in physical danger. So I
Yes,
don't
which
know
is again
if yes. So at this
a
point,
layer
I would
of
say
understanding that you can
yes.
understand, but
Yes.
it's still
Still sucks.
the wrong thing to do.
Yes. So I would say at this point, Dawson, talk to Joey. Tell her what you saw. Tell her why this fire happened, and let her figure out how she wants to handle the situation for her family. Um, so he should have gone to her immediately before talking to his parents,
Mm.
or making this whole plan with police and all of this. Because obviously his parents are going to tell him
But
go
yeah,
to the
see,
police, da 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 da,
this is the
whatever.
thing. It isn't even the fact he tells Joey that's the wrong thing to do. That
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah,
It's it's not as good a thing as just trying to let Mike tell her
yeah,
in time and you then pressuring Mike to tell her. I think that's
yeah,
fine. Keep doing that. What
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
But telling Joey and then having Joey make up her own mind is okay. But telling Joey and then saying, "Oh, also, Pacey's dad's outside ready to take Mike back to prison."
yeah.
And that's just what's going to happen now. So he was wrong, criminal, point, point, point.
Yeah. Yes.
But I love
Um,
you, Joey. I'm doing this for
yes,
you.
I'm doing this for you.
Drivel.
Yeah,
Drivel.
and that's why Joey has this a huge adverse reaction. And like I love that even, she's like, "You're trying to do all this and you don't even have any evidence." against him.
Right. But there's
So
no actual he's not brought out the bag, has he,
yeah,
with all
yes,
of the
this is all
cocaine in? He just
speculation for
said
all
he
you
said
know,
it,
and
or
Dawson's
say said he
word.
saw it.
Yeah, so the fact that, like, I get Dawson's concern, fire, this is now getting more serious, so then go to Joey. Go to Joey and say, "Hey, Joey, I saw this thing. It's true. I have no reason to lie to you. So handle it how you will. I'm giving you the respect to handle this situation
Yeah,
for your family what's best. I personally don't morally agree with what your father's doing or what he did.
yeah.
It pisses me
But
off
go
that
and
he
speak
put
to him.
you it pisses me off that he put you in danger in this way, but this is not my family. You've been
Yeah,
without your father. You know who he is. You
yeah.
handle it
Go
your
and
way.
speak to him.
But he didn't do that. He went to his parents. His parents implored him to talk to the police. So that situation was all set up. And then he goes and tells Joey, "Hey, I saw what I saw. This is what happened. The police want to talk to you and figure this out." And it's too late now for her to even make this decision, to even process it, to understand, think about what that's going to mean for the family that she was trying to rebuild. All of that has been taken away from her because Dawson thought he knew what was best. And she tells him, "Dawson, we will not survive this. I'm
Yeah,
telling you right now, our relationship will not survive this." And he says that's a risk he's going to have to take because he loves her so much and he doesn't want her in this situation. So he admits that he knows the
ah,
risk, that he could lose
it's
her, and he is willing to take that to get her out of this situation that he
it's that
thinks is very bad.
it's that famous "I love you so much that I'm actually going to make you utterly miserable but
Yeah.
safe for the rest of your life."
Yes. Yes. So she talks
What a
to
lovely life.
Yes. So she's there with John, Witter and Dawson's parents, and they're kind of formulating this plan. "We just need him to confess." Da, 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 da. And she's like, "You don't even have any evidence. What are you doing here?" And so Dawson has all of them leave the room. He tries to talk to her, and she tells him again, like,
Yeah,
"Dawson, this will end us. Like, I
this is
can't,
the end.
you know, I loved the way you thought, the way your mind works, all of these things. It's what made me fall in love with you, but this is also what's killing us. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Dawson." So then we see her go speak to her father, and she walks into the room really timidly,
Mm,
tells him, "Are you dealing again? Please just be honest with me. What happened?" And he tries to go to touch her, and she
yeah,
like pulls back, and we think it's just
yeah.
this very sensitive thing, and it's because he confesses, he apologizes, he's crying, he says, "I thought I could just get us a little bit ahead, and and then it would make things better. I'm sorry, I'm a weak man, da 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 da. I love you so much. I wanted to rebuild our family." And then she lifts her shirt and shows she's wearing a wire and got this confession.
Mm.
And in that moment, he's even 100% understanding of why she did it. He
He
doesn't
is
blame her.
he is
He's not upset. He's not like, "How dare you, child?" He's very much like, "I get it. I get this is what you had to
yeah.
do, and I still love you, and I'm not upset. I deserved this," kind of thing. They take him away, and Joey's family is ruined. Dawson tries to come talk to her, and she's just not having any of it.
Obviously, and this is
Yeah,
obviously incredibly devastating for Joey.
yeah,
A completely, heartbreakingly awful
yeah,
for Joey and Joey alone.
yeah.
I mean, not Joey alone, but in the grand scheme of
E
who we fully care about in Dawson's Creek, it's heartbreaking for Joey alone.
Yeah, she says, "I don't wanna
And
know you anymore."
yeah, I mean
To
that
her
is
best
definitive.
friend of life, her boyfriend, the love of her life, "I don't wanna know you anymore."
That is definitive. That isn't
Yeah,
"we're breaking up." That is "I don't want to know you
yeah,
anymore." That
yeah,
is a significant difference.
yeah.
And I won't ask that question. I'll ask this question instead, which I actually do want an answer to. Do we see Mike Potter again?
I don't think we do.
That's even worse then.
Yeah. If I'm remembering correctly, yeah, I don't think we see him again.
That is
Um,
so much
I
worse then.
I haven't rewatched the college aspects of Dawson's Creek in a while, so those are not as fresh to me as these early seasons. I think once
Yeah,
they get to college, like, I don't think I've rewatched those episodes as much. So, there might be something that deals with him and or just like a line of dialogue that explains where that relationship
right.
is at, but I don't remember. So,
Yeah, that makes this 10 times worse then,
yeah.
and just awful. Wonderful as a
Yeah.
finale of television, but
Yes.
absolutely awful emotionally.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of where we leave our couple finally reunited, all happy and great, and,
Yeah,
white picket fences only for it to end in this
that.
really devastating way. A family blown up, a friendship blown up, a relationship blown up, all in one fell swoop. So, yeah, we're
Mm,
gonna come into season 3.
right.
I will just, briefly tell you Dawson goes away for the summer and we open to him coming back to Cape Side. So,
Okay, interesting.
yes.
I'm interested to see what goes on with season 3. I think it'd be quite different to these
Yeah.
first 2 seasons in terms of dynamics of people.
Oh, yeah. The first few episodes definitely tried to throw this kind of wild aspect a little bit
Yeah.
into the
Okay.
mix. So,
But I'm
yeah.
obviously continually intrigued
Yeah.
and can't wait to
Yes,
get
you're enjoying Dawson's Creek?
enjoying is not a word I can use for these 2 episodes.
Well,
Um,
as a television show,
appreciating,
as a series, uh,
yes,
um, you're enjoying
appreciating as a good television, as a very good television show, yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
But was there any enjoyment? Yes, there was. There was some enjoyment in these couple of episodes, but
Yeah,
there was a lot of emotional effect in these
yeah.
couple of episodes, which is exactly what it should have done. So, absolutely, I can't say anything other than it's great.
Awesome. So, 2 seasons down, a few more to
Yes,
go. We're working our way steadily through Dawson's Creek, and I'm excited.
we certainly this show, Discovering Dawson's Creek, alternates every Monday with Talking Ted Lasso
Yeah.
here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Of course, Ted Lasso season 4 has just been officially announced as happening, hasn't it? Properly with everybody coming back and things like that. So we will be getting a season 4 of Ted Lasso. Obviously,
Yes.
we are just finishing. We're starting season 2 of Ted Lasso. That's what we're doing
Yes.
next. Have I got that
Next.
right in the scheduling of things? I think so.
Yeah.
But this
Yes.
show does alternate every other Monday with that, and of course you can subscribe and ding your notification bell on this YouTube channel for all the fun stuff we do have here. Subscribe to the main podcast feed as well for Morgan Hasn't Seen and the main show It's a Wonderful Podcast, celebrating old movies every week, of course, over there on all major podcast platforms. Everything's been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. Patreon donation links, social media, all in the description down below. Janine, I do think there is only one thing left to do, and I dread to do it. But in
What?
in your most annoyingly righteous Dawson Leary voice, count us down.
3, 2, 1.
I don't want to know you anymore. Bye. Go away, Dawson.